Madam, Professor Namita.
Hello.
Yeah, madam. You on your camera, I will introduce and now we will start our session.
Okay, sir.
Yeah. Now it is good. So, good afternoon, dear participant. Now that today, after lunch first session, we are going to start with Professor Namita Bhardwaj. Professor Namita is a professor and head in Department of the Chemistry and Dr. CV Raman University, Bilaspur. And Madam is also in charge and chairperson of the Women's Cell of that university. And today, Madam is going to talk about very interesting topic, that is the gender role and status of the women in Indian society. As we know that women's no, it is an equal partner in the society with us. So the country growth and development is directly linked with the women's growth and development. So we are very happy, Madam, and I go off my heart. I thank you so much for ready to deliver your lecture and share your experience with our participant. On the behalf of the Mizoram University and HRDC Mizoram University, I welcome you in this FIP, 5th FIP program of the HRDC Mizoram University. So with this brief introduction, Madam, once again, thank you. And now I am handing over the session to you for your presentation and lecture.
Thank you, sir. Thank you so much for your nice introduction.
Yeah, Madam, your PPT is visible. Just make it in presentation mode. Madam, just press F5. Maybe it will work. F5 key in your keyboard.
There is no option showing for slide show.
Madam, it is there. Just no slideshow. It is there. It is visible. Upside, home, insert, design, animation. Then after slideshow. Yeah. You go your left side. From 1, 2, 3, 4, 5th. Fifth option is slideshow. Yeah. After that, Madam, the same line top. In the top, no home. Where is home? The home is first, second, third, fourth, fifth is slideshow. Yeah, fifth, yeah, design. After that, after your cursor is there, after animation and slideshow. After design, Madam, this is design. After that, animation and slideshow. Just upside top, it is visible. You are able to see, Madam, animation. Just design. Yeah, where is your cursor?
No, just covering the mute staff video participants showing here.
नो बिसाइड उसके बगल में मैडम होम के बाद इंजर्ट है, डिजाइन है, एनिमेशन उसके एनिमेशन के बगल में
just cover that with mute and staff video and participants. So जस्ट इसके नीचे ही है मुझे लग रहा है, लेकिन ये ऊपर से म्यूट स्टाफ वीडियो पार्टिसिपेंट शो हो रहा है, तो वो शो नहीं हो रहा है वाला बटन।
नहीं मैडम, बटन हमको दिख रहा है यहाँ।
ना
हम
आपको दिख रहा है, बट यहाँ पे शो नहीं हो रहा है मेरे स्क्रीन पर।
एक बार मैडम फिर से आप जो स्टाफ शेयरिंग करके फिर से आप शेयर करिए, हो सकता है कुछ इशू हो।
हाँ, हो सकता है। फिर से वही ऊपर वो पूरा एक स्क्रीन पूरी उसको कवर कर रही है, उस एरिया को। ये इसकी जूम की स्क्रीन कवर कर रही है उसको।
वो जूम की स्क्रीन मैडम ना मूवेबल है, आप कर्सर करके उसको आगे पीछे कर सकते हैं। या एक मैडम एक आपके कंप्यूटर पे आपके राइट हैंड साइड में ऊपर देखिए व्यू है। हाँ अभी
देखिए
हो गया
सर,
मैडम।
स्लाइड शो
हाँ
हो
हाँ,
रहा
हो गया हो गया मैडम।
है। सो
हाँ, एक मैडम ऊपर व्यू है, व्यू में क्लिक करेंगे तो आप साइड बाय साइड गैलरी कर चूज कर लेंगे ऑप्शन, तो आपका वीडियो साइड में आ जाएगा। व्यू में क्लिक करने के बाद साइड बाय साइड गैलरी आपके राइट हैंड साइड में टॉप पे है व्यू।
मोर पे जाके
हाँ नो, व्यू व्यू में क्लिक करेंगे तो वहां स्टैंडर्ड है, साइड बाय साइड स्पीकर है, साइड बाय साइड गैलरी है। Okay madam, now also it is visible, it is in full screen, you can start.
So today my topic is gender roles and stereotypes and status of women in Indian society. So over the years, women in India have been victims of extreme social, cultural, and developmental adaptations. In the ancient period, many women across various Indian states were compulsorily made to follow several social traditions and restrictions, thereby victimizing them in a largely patriarchal society. Practices such as female feticide, female infanticide, dowry, domestic violence, acid throwing, and taboo on widow remarriage were rampant. These retrogressive practices have declined with time, but are yet to see a complete root out. On a passive note, there have been incidents where a few Indian women have shown nationally as well as internationally. They have brought laurels to the country across fields such as sports, art, culture, and cinema, space, and technology. So these are contents which I am going to discuss with you. So today the empowerment of women has become one of the most important concern of 21st century. From early 20th century, their status have been changed slowly and gradually. The study reveals that women of India are relatively disempowered and they enjoy somewhat lower status than that of men in spite of many efforts undertaken by the government. Gender gap exists regarding access to education and employment, household decision-making power, and freedom of movement of women vary considerably vary with their age, education, and employment status. It is found that acceptance of unequal gender norms by women are still prevailing in the society. Rural women are more prone to domestic violence than that of urban women. A large gender gap exists in political participation too. The empowerment of women has become one of the most important concerns of 21st century, but practically women empowerment is still an illusion of reality. Being equal to their male counterparts is still a far cry for Indian women. Here is the status of women in Indian society. So as per the census 2011, India's population was 121 around crore and the females constituted 48.5% of it. As per the census 2011, the literacy rate at all India level was 72.98% and the literacy rate for females and male are 64.60% and 80.9% respectively. If we talk about participation in economy, so the workforce participation rate at all India level was 25.51% for female and 53.26% for males. Participation in decision making, as in 2016, women ministers constituted 12% in Central Council of Ministers. It means 9 out of 75. In the 16th Lok Sabha, 12% of the total members are women. It means only 64 out of 534. In 2015, the shares of women judges in Supreme Court was 4%. So only 1 out of 26. And it was 10% considering all high courts in India in 2016. At all India level, 46% of the elected representatives in Panchayati Raj institution are women. If you talk about crime against women, so of the 6 million crimes that police in India recorded between 1 January and 31st December last year, there are a majority of the cases in 2021, the report said, were of kidnapping and abduction, rape, domestic violence, dowry death, and assaults. Also, so many women were attacked with acid. 1,580 women were trafficked, 15 girls were sold, and 2,668 women were victims of cyber crimes. So, total cases are total cases rises up 26.3% over 6 years from cases in 2000 from 2016. These are the issues which affecting the status of women in Indian society. So we start with the gender and its role and status. Within the Indian subcontinent, there have been infinite variations of the status of women, differing according to the cultural milieu, family structure, caste, class, property right, etc. We have to specify as to whether we are talking about rural women or urban women, about middle class or lower class women, about Brahmin or scheduled caste women, about women in the Hindu society or in the Muslim community. The form and extent of work and political participation, levels of education, state of health, representation in decision-making bodies, access to property, etc. are some relevant indicators of status of the individual members in a society. However, not all members of a society have got equal access to the factors which constitute these indicators of status. Gender is one of the crucial dimensions behind this inequality. Hence, due to various socio-cultural factors, the economic and political role of women have remained mostly unrecognized. Let us take one by one the issue which affects the status of women in Indian society. So gender word is much more complex. It is a social and legal status and set of expectations from society about behavior, characteristic, and thoughts. Each culture has standards about the way that people should behave based on their gender. This is also generally male or female. But instead of being about body parts, it's more about how you are expected to act because of your sex. Gender roles in society means how we are expected to act, speak, dress, groom, and conduct ourselves based upon our assigned sex. For example, girls and women are generally expected to dress in typically feminine way and be polite, accommodating, and nurturing. Men are generally expected to be strong, aggressive, and bold. Every society, ethnic group, and culture has gender role expectations, but they can be very different from group to group. They can also change in the same society over time. For example, pink used to be considered as masculine color, while blue was considered feminine in the US. The traditional social roles of women and men have remained unchanged for many years. The traditional social role of women is that of the lady of the house, taking care of the family, being focused on children and their happiness. Traditional occupational roles attributed to women are related to caring for others, means homekeeper, and require communal characteristics, kind, sensitive. On the other hand, the traditional man is the head of the family, the one who is responsible for the maintenance of the house and who through strength and determination defend it against danger. Traditionally, men occupy the roles related to leadership, which are associated with agentic characteristics, means independent and competitive. The traditional gender social roles are consistent with stereotypical traits attributed to men and women. In most countries, attributes such as affection or sensitivity are considered more typical of women, whereas attributes such as aggressiveness or courage are considered more typical of men. However, in the last 2 decades, along with deepening social and economical changes, the social role of women and men began to undergo vivid modifications. The family and women's work. The traditional social role of women and men have remained unchanged for many years. In recent time, the changes occurring in the social role of women and men have observed. Traditionally, the dominating social role of the woman was as a housewife, and that of the man was focused on work and family maintenance. Nowadays, the social role of women is evolving in the direction of taking a profession, while increasingly men are taking care of the household. Teenage residents and women. Most families in India, irrespective of their caste and religion, are patrilineal. The expectations are the exceptions are the matrilineal Nayars of Kerala and tribes like the Khasi of Meghalaya. Simply put, patrilineality implies descent and inheritance through the male line. It also usually implies patriarchality or living of the husband in his father's home, quite often with his father, brother, or brothers and their wives and children. This is also a simplified definition of a joint family. Under patriarchality of wife visit to her natal home are usually restricted to ritual occasions, and the child is socialized mainly according to the value of the father's family. Even though a mother has a vital part of play in the child's life, major decisions regarding his or her future and that of others in the family are taken by the man in the family. Gender role stereotyping and household codes. Even after decades of economic growth and development of India, which has been a greater participation of women in the workforce, older stereotype attached to women when it comes to household chores sadly remain unchanged. A one-time Nielsen India study on Indian households supported by Airtel has found that while over two-thirds of Indian women feel there exists inequality at home between men and women. Indian men believe laundry is a woman's job. Two-thirds of women feel men do not help with household chores in India. The question of payment for household job has not really been an important issue of demand. As we shall see, there are many other issues which require urgent attention at the same time. It is important for us to remember that non-payment should not also mean non-recognition. The fact that women are expected to perform all these tasks as a part of their conventional roles and no special merit is awarded to them for these tiring and tiresome jobs. If we talk about women and paid employment, the periodic labor force survey is carried out on an annual basis for estimate key employment and unemployment indicators such as unemployment rate, labor force participation, work population ratio in urban and rural area. Periodic labor force survey results indicates that the work population ratio for females in rural sector was 17.5 and 51.7 for males in 2020-21. In urban sector, the ratio is 14.2 for females and 53 for males. In both rural and urban area, work population ratio for female were considerably lower than WPRS for males. It is held by many observers of Indian economy that status of women without women's paid or unpaid labor, the Indian agriculture economy would not be able to function. In the informal sector, there is no legal redressal for problem. No maternity or other leave benefits and little security of service. Working long hours as domestic servant, stitching clothes for the garment export industry, working on the assembly line of small electronics manufacturing units like the BD tobacco unit factories. Women live in fear or replacement, exploitation, and inadequate wages. Women's work, participation, and their status as workers have been affected by various factors. Some of the important ones are women's self-perception, employers' attitude to women, employees' traditional position of authority in the rural and urban area, and traditional role expectations. So women's self-perceptions. Once in a job, how a woman relates to it depends on her primary socialization. If as if as is the case with most, she has internalized the dominance of the homemaker role. She is likely to adopt a non-competitive, uninvolved, and low profile at work. She is committed to the value system, which stresses that her energy and motivations are to be directed to make a success of her home and not her job interestingly. This is true of women in highly skilled occupation as well. In her study of women scientists, some researchers found that though women were concerned about continuing their job, they were not looking for better prospect, nor have they begun with a long-range career strategy. Once in a job, women rarely attempt to acquire further qualification, which would help in promotion. In fact, their attitude towards was by showed that women were more different than men in their promotion prospects. They felt insecure about their qualifications, personal attributes, and ability to pass requisite in service examinations. A small though significant proportion said that if promotion involved transfer outside the city of giving more time to the job, they would not be in a position to apply. Apart from not applying for promotions because it would conflict with one's family commitment. Some women do not even enter the profession for which they have been trained. Employer's attitude. So the gender bias can happen at all stages of recruiting, hiring, and retaining employees. Many recruiting strategies are biased. Throughout the recruiting processes, there can be cases of gender bias, starting with where and how you recruit candidate. Employers may unconsciously or consciously place open roles on platform with predominantly male candidates or actively target men through ad aside from being unethical. Know that this is also illegal. When interviews are not standardized, the questions interviewers ask can be biased based on the candidate's personality experience and even gender additionally. During the interview, hiring managers tend to ask more targeted questions about a female candidate's leadership abilities and unconsciously refer more masculine leadership style. The perks and benefits companies offer can significantly contribute to gender bias and opportunity discrimination between genders. This is especially true when it comes to benefits for working parents, since women are typically assigned to act as the primary caregiver of children, which has led to motherhood penalty. Women are discriminated against at the time of promotion and tended to be crowded into lower status clerical and primary school jobs. They are rarely promoted to executive and supervisory posts. Among skilled and unskilled workers, the reason put forth for preferring men is their greater physical strength and lower rate of absenteeism. As regards employment and promotion to supervisory and clerical categories, male employees defended themselves by pointing out that women did not come forth to be recruited or promoted. The tendency of most of the employees is that in any case, a woman's primary responsibility is to her home, and with a high male unemployment rate, woman who is often secondary earner should not be given preference over men. Traditional position of authority in rural areas. In rural areas, the ownership of land, means of production, as well as decision making are dominating by men. Division of labor within the family as well as in the employment market is weighted in favor of those in position or authority. So many case studies shows that even when men are not the chief breadwinner, women steeped in a traditional which reverse man as the annadata. Rarely speak of themselves as the head of household are those who can make major family decisions. Though in the families, women are the principal earner. Employment did not improve the woman's self-estimated estimation or status in the social hierarchy. Notions of female dependency and inferiority are carried over to area where in fact men have to really rely on their wives' skill for survival. In where women make fine in Andhra Pradesh, where women make fine less, the men folk took the production to distant area to sell. Women spoke of their dependency on men, but did not point out that without their skill, husband may will well be unemployed, if not destitute. They were characteristically modest about their roles in productive labor. Though women were aware that their work was quite distinct from housework and was by no means a leisure time activity, they did not attach much importance to their economic roles. In the urban areas, the working class and men particularly have a wider range of job options available to them. When unemployed lower class family migrates to big city, the woman folk found job only as a domestic servant, while men become mechanics, cooks, or drivers. The shift in resident meant a servant with an established way of life and the support of the extended family. Option at home, men who had a few options at home become more physically and choosy about jobs in the metropolitan city. Women could women could hardly take any time off from work to look around for alternatives. Yet men as well as women regard the unpaid and paid worker of men as supportive and women earning as supplementary. In a study of sweeper women of Delhi, it was found that women supported unemployed husband unquestioningly and even put up with physical abuse from them. The husband were the Malik or masters entitled to such services as message of the lakes and field. It was found that women had to status of women perform such services after full day work in the area of green revolution. When husband removes out of the traditional occupation, woman actively supports, made attempt at getting better job in the urban environment. Women appeared convinced that men had right to better lives, while they rarely had such thoughts for themselves. Restricted physical mobility, full active support, full active responsibility for housework, as well as fairly rigid view or where women certain castes should work led women automatically to a situation where it was assumed that occupational mobility was meant for men only. Not unexpectedly, most daughters after the age of the 8 years of so joined their mothers of mother work like cook and clean the home. Boy rarely helped, and it is not unusual to see sons playing uh, uh, in the gully while their younger sister are at work either at home or with their mothers. So working condition for the majority of working class women, a job is essential in relation to the man. They have fewer choices as well as limited chances for occupational mobility. When men and women work in the same occupation, female tasks are often the more arduous and time consuming. For instance, in paddy cultivation, they spend long hours in sowing, weeding, and transplanting. In Kerala, the extraction of the cashew nut seed from a corrosive liquid is women's work. Again, when both sexes do identical jobs, women often get paid less than men. Protests are rare apart from ignorance of legal and other rights. There is a fear of exploitation and sexual harassment by the landlord or contractor. Traditional role expectations. Irrespective of social class, there is at the level of belief widespread commitment to the notion that a woman's job must not interfere or compete with her primary role of wife and mother. There is also concern with her physical safety and the respectability of the occupation. Clearly, working class families are far less able to ensure these conditions, and often their women work under very difficult circumstances. Highly rated occupation for middle class women are teaching jobs at various levels, librarianship, medicine, particular with specialization in gynecology and pediatrics, health visitorship, and so on. However, as the availability of job is dependent on the market situation as well as on concern to higher education, many women have to be content with being telephone operator, clerk, typist, and nurses. As you are doing the course, you may well think back on your own life experience. How often have you heard your father or your brother discuss their work and work related issues and problems? And how often have your mother, wife, and sister, is irrespective of whether they are housewife or school teachers, in a different way? If you reflect on the matter, you will probably find that the men talk and express more in the home environment on their work related lives. Women tend to discuss marriage negotiation, incidents with other relatives, the price of kerosene, and so on, much more with family members. What is involved a question of perceptions is vital for an understanding of how individuals view their roles. Women, much more than men, irrespective of their multiplicity of role, tend to internalize the view of homemaker and nurturing provider. This self-perception is more acute in a patrilineal system where official authority figures are men. Role stereotyping impacts on women's health. So women are generally vulnerable to poor nutrition in all phases of life, impacting their own growth and development, and are more likely to have babies with low birth weight. Gender-based discrimination means preference for a son along with other social pathologies like the dowry system, early marriage, often result in mistreatment and abuse of women, which is eventually leaves a negative impact on her overall health. In a scarcity situation, Women and girls suffer as a result of food discrimination. By this, we mean that men and boys eat first and are given the larger and more nutritious portions. Traditionally, women eat after men in our society, and when there is limited food to be distributed, they automatically get less. What is important here is that food discrimination is not only a function of poverty and scarcity, but also of perceptions and expectations. It is assumed that men need better and more food because they work hard and are the breadwinner. The fact that women may work as hard and earn as much is rarely taken into consideration. Certainly, the labor and angry they expend in household-related tasks are rarely taken note of. These perceptions are a part of a system where little value is attached to female life. Amniocentesis and sex discriminations. You have probably heard of amniocentesis, or the process by which the amniotic fluid is extracted from a pregnant woman to determine the health of the fetus or unborn child. Some birth-related defects are more common in girls and other in boys. Thus, the process of the test involves determining the sex of the child so as to establish the presence or otherwise of some or other defects. The aim of the test is not to ascertain the sex of the child, though it is now become misused for pre-birth sex determination. Following amniocentesis, most women who go in for the test leading to abortion of the female fetus are from middle class home and may even have college education. The misuse of this test has now resulted in banning of this test in India. What is important here is to understand and make the distinction between a test conducted only for medical reasons to answer particular when you have seen how much work a woman does. In part we can answer this question by looking roles, expectation, and obligation. We can say that certain obligation, namely that of occur in the case of the urban middle class, among whom amniocentesis becomes so common. Here, one could perhaps argue that the consideration of dowry to be paid is the most important factor. Secondly, it is possible that with the rising cost of living and increasing expectations, the small family norm is becoming more popular among those who had earlier larger family. Here, in case of accidental pregnancy, abortion following amniocentesis may have been practiced, particularly in the fetus was that of a female. The argument, of course, remains the same: a girl less wanted than a boy. It can be hypothesized that, irrespective of the sex of the first child, it was unlikely that the second fetus, it was that of a boy, was aborted. Even if the parents want only two children and that two preferably on one of each sex. On the other hand, a female fetus was likely woman and society to be aborted more readily. So now let's we talk about the women's psychological response, means mental health of women. Depressive disorder account for close to 41.9% of the disability from neuropsychiatric disorder among women, compared to 29.3% among men. Leading mental health problem of the elderly are depression, organic brain system, and demerites. Uh, a majority or gender is a critical determinant of mental health and mental illness. The pattern of psychological distress and psychiatric disorder among women are different from those seen among men. Women have a higher mean level of internalizing disorder, while men show a higher mean level of externalizing disorder. Gender differences occur particularly in the rate of common mental disorder, wherein women predominant. Difference between gender have been reported in the age of onset symptoms, clinical features, frequency of psychotic symptoms, course, social adjustment, and long-term outcome of severe mental disorder. Women who abuse alcohol or drug are more likely to attribute their drinking to traumatic event or a stress and are more likely to have been sexually or physically abused than other women. Girls from nuclear family and women married at a very young age are at highly risk for attempted suicide and self-harm. Social factors and gender-specific factor determines the prevalence and course of a mental disorder in female sufferers. Low attendance in hospital setting is partly explained by the lack of availability of resources for women. Around two-thirds of married women in India were victims of domestic violence. Constant effort at social, political, economic, and legal levels can bring change in the level of Indian women and contribute to the improvement of the mental health of these women. Accumulated and repressive psychoanalysis. As you heard, a few girl students suddenly started screaming, shouting, and banging their heads at a government school in Rayarpuli village in Bageshwar. Experts said that this is the case of mass hysteria. Girls either do not express themselves, that is, they repress their resentment and unhappiness, or even if they do, family tend to take more notice of boys' problem than those of girls. After a certain point, internalized unhappiness manifests itself in more concrete to form. It is not being suggested that women's same illness or even possession states in order to gain attention. What is being suggested, however, is that at the level of the unconscious, a sense of social marginalization and anguish leads to an obsession with the self, either at the psychiatric level, at physical level, or at birth. This compensation by the individual for collective neglect often leads to illness of various forms. Role stereotyping in the educational and socialization process. You are perhaps aware that many more Indian boys than girls are enrolled in school and finish their education up to certain levels. Looking around, you will see girls helping their mother at home, going out to work, or taking care of their younger brothers and sisters. What we shall look at here is how the educational system itself perpetuates stereotypes and creates new ones. We are using the term educational system to include what is taught in class, namely the syllabus, attitude of teachers and school and college administrators, and the view put forth in textbook. At the level of policy, there has been a certain degree of confusion regarding the right kind of education for girls. Gender differentiation in course of study. Choosing and enrolling in a higher education degree and consequently selecting a profession is still conditioned by social and cultural factors characterized by gender stereotypes that continue to attack more men to technical and technological careers and more women to teacher training and social work. However, the nature of gender inequality changed over the recent decades, becoming more complex. This complexity can be observed in the man and women's career preferences. Even considering that vocation influence the choice, the stability that some careers represent regarding the immediate access to employment and to reasonable salaries also influence the option made by men and women. Are girls not capable of becoming neurosurgeons, engineers, nuclear scientists, and so on? Generally, school in class 12 results in Indian states showed that girls often secured a higher pass percentage than boys in all the four groups, namely science, humanities, commerce, and vocational studies. Indian girls were more likely than men to be applying for courses in the FAME, means finance, accounting, management, and economics. but they were much less likely to be applying in STEM subject, means science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. Choice of subjects and professional mobility. Historical women had very less participation in STEM field, as these fields were handled predominantly by males. The STEM field was considered a high status profession where females were not encouraged to aspire, while males were forced to aspire. This orientation is built purely on the basis of people's gender stereotype. Females are considered as caring, loving, physically weak, and less intelligent, whereas males are considered strong, intelligent, responsible, and breadwinners of the family. Parent, family members, teachers, peers, and the society encourage male to choose STEM field and females to choose arts and nursing. As a result, students tend to think that science is a masculine field. The factors which influencing the choice of subjects. Females show less interest towards science and males become more passionate towards science field. Though this notion has changed to a larger extent in recent years, in most families, especially in rural areas, still gender plays a role in choosing the course of study. Parents are the first teachers and best source of information for a child. Parents guide their children to adapt with their environment. Gender appropriate information. Parent helps children learn gender appropriate behaviors. As children are not mature enough to make decisions on their own, parents plan the future for their children. Teachers take the place of parents away from homes and school. Next to parents, teachers have major influence on children. Students usually consider teacher as perfect person in the world who have lot of knowledge. Therefore, students follow each and every instruction of teachers without a second thought. The ideas and conceptions of teachers are easily observed by students. A common stereotype in education is about mathematical ability. People think that males are better in mathematics than females. If math teachers have this belief, they become biased towards students' ability. This may be one of the reasons who boys pay more attention in mathematics than girls. Female students in India are restrained from attaining higher education. Parent unwillingness to educate girl children is one of the major factors. The financial status of family, early marriage, and education misconceptions are some of the additional factors that determine the prospects of the education of children. Choice of career and professional mobility. Most of the girls who took up science hope to enter medical college. Of those who were not successful, the majority went into home science, biochemistry, or switched to art subjects. Very few aspired to be engineers, research scientists, or geophysicists. Studies of girls who do become scientists and professional in competitive area indicate a lower degree of job involvement and concentration in the lower selection of service. One reason for this, of course, is that women do not remain long enough in a profession or job to be eligible for promotion. Often family reasons such as marriage, limited physical mobility due to the nature of husband, employment, reluctance to spend more time at work as it would mean compromising with responsibility at home and so on are responsible for well well demarcated hours of work and degree of participation of social work or elementary school teaching are often viewed as more qualified than women. These men often benefit from a glass escalator. They are paid more and promoted more quickly than their female counterparts. Most of the girls who took up science hoped enter medical college, and if those who are not successful, the majority went to home science, biochemistry, or switched out to art subject. There are so many biases in textbooks also. Gender bias in textbooks is an important but overlooked problem. Content analysis of textbook have shown that women occupies a subordinate status in society. Their roles are insignificant and most limited to household chores. They were rarely shown contributing to society outside their home. For a balanced view of the world, it is not only necessary for girls but equally important for boys to have female role model. As a new uniform curricular is being designated for the whole country, it is essential to include unbiased gender inclusive text. It is necessary to create awareness and promote gender equality through content in the textbook because they contribute to individual and collective identity and gender sensitive values for future generation. As a student spend more of them time in classroom in reading textbooks. Differentiation in the socialization process. Every culture has different guidelines about what is appropriate for males and females. And family members may socialize babies in general ways without consciously following the path. For example, the toys and games parents select for children are often unconsciously intended to socialize them into the appropriate gender roles. Girls receive dolls in an attempt to socialize them into future role as mother. Since women are expected to be more nurturing the man, giving a girl a doll teaches her to care for it and fosters the value of caring for others. When boys receive dolls, they are likely to be action figures designed to bring out the aggressive tendency in boys. In India, girls are not individual as boys. He and his peers were free to earn a living or help at home and do a job of fetching and carrying. Restriction on movement are not so severe. If you live in a village and you will observe that a girl can, until puberty, be allowed to move about quite freely in public places. You would perhaps think that she could be spending the time in school. If you are an urban dweller, you will be familiar with discussion at home or perhaps on the radio and television of how difficult it is for parents to allow their daughters to stay back after school hours to participate in extracurricular activities. Parents and guardians are consistently bothered with their safety on public buses, and in any case, there is always the question of relation and friends who want to know why it is necessary for girls to play basketball or learn music after school hours. That is the time when she is expected at home to participate in variety of household chores. Such questions, however, are less often raised in case of boy who is always late in coming home from college. A part of stereotyping process assumes that boys more than girls have a right to more independence and self-expression. Expectation and obligations are more rigid in the case of girls, and their rights are accordingly fewer. Media, women, and the changing scenario. When looking at the news and TV program in any given period, investigate them thoroughly, it is found that media equates women to their bodies and exploits them. The content about women is largely comprised of subject concerned with entertainment, tabloid, and sexuality. Women are being objectified every day without their individual efforts to reverse it. Such content is sometimes dressed up and marketed as emancipatory for women, though instead they merely repeat the problematic portrayals seen in the past. Media clearly differentiate societal role between man and women. Unfortunately, the media is largely being society when it comes to this. It commonly portrays women as a secondary bound and dependent to other parties. Not only does our media fail to encourage and educate women in their pursuit of rights, but it also reinforces the biased and problematic perception of them in the society. Women as projected on television, there has been a gender bias in the television programs. The stereotypes are formed and perpetuated in Indian television program. A majority of people in India consciously or unconsciously tend to believe that movies or for that matter media in general are often said to be the reflection of the society. It has been the topic of discussion that the media truly reflect the society or not. There is no doubt that media have a big socio-cultural influence on the society. As far as showing women in advertisement is concerned, things seem to have only worsened over time. In most of the advertisements of recent times too, a woman is either washing clothes and utensils, cooking, serving food to family members, or trying to make her husband feel better, who is at the time reading a newspaper or suffering from cold. A woman does all the household chores even when she has a headache or backache. These advertisements arguably encourage sexism. They reinforce the age-old belief that woman is supposed to forgo her own comfort and keep on doing household chores without getting tired. The same has remained true for the soap opera of earlier times and of recent times. While in many of these soap, a woman has more decision power than their male counterpart, it is very difficult to come across so many such families in real life. Moreover, those women who wear modern clothes and appear very confident more often than not have bad intentions than their conservative and there is also biased representation of women in cinema. Hindi cinema has been a major point of reference for Indian culture in this country. It has shaped and expressed the changing scenario of modern India to an extent that no preceding art form could ever achieve. Hindi cinema has influenced the way in which people perceive various aspects of their own lives. The movies that have three different points of view towards women. To some extent, they identify area where modern feminism comes into contact with traditional values. Film also been inspired to a large extent from religion and mythology, whereby women characters were seen as the epitome of virtue and value. Those who could do no wrong. The image of woman as Sita has been repeatedly evoked in many films after independence, despite the progress that Bollywood films have made and the increasing accessibility of these films. Things have not changed much for Indian women, as objectification of women continues in the most of the Indian movies in the form of item numbers or an explicit love making scenes. This continues these continuities are proof of the ongoing influence of Western neo-colonialism, this time invested in the circulation of cultural products that express Western ideas of women and femininity. Of course, media can play the role in changing the scenario of status of women in the society. I find extremely appropriate here to refer to the recommendation made by the Joshi Committee regarding positive portrayal of women on Doordarshan, but these recommendations are equally relevant to all form of media. These recommendations, if followed in letter and spirit, would certainly go in long way in enhancement of women empowerment and facilitate drastic reduction in cultural biases as well as gender biases. They are the women issue, one of the utmost significance the country as a whole, and there is a need to widespread understanding that the nation cannot progress as long as women are left behind as the lesser half of society. Therefore, the improvement of women condition, status, and image must be defined to be a major objective for media channels. The government must at the earliest formulate clear guidelines regarding the positive portrayal of women on television. This portrayal must take roles of women in all facets of their lives as workers and significant contributions to family survival and the national economic. It must further endeavor to integrate women on terms of equality in all sectors of national life and the development process. This guideline must emphasize that the women's dimensions must form an integral part of the programs and not to be merely confined to women's program, not to isolated attempts to discuss women issues. The number of commercial formula films screen must be drastically reduced. The cheap song and dance sequences to totally eliminated, and the content of such program carefully scrutinized in terms of their portrayal of women. Women must not be portrayed in stereotyped image that emphasizes passive, submissive quality and encourage them to play a subordinate secondary role in the family and society. Both men and women should be portrayed in ways that encourage uh, mutual respect and a spirit of give and take between the sexes. The foreign exchange resources should be spent in important worth educative program, particularly those that show the roles, lives, and struggles of women in neighboring and other third world countries so that a greater understanding and a shared perspective on problems is built. It is necessary to ensure that a large number of rural women gain access to TV. Therefore, in the placement of community, TV sets preference should be given to the meeting place of mandals या mahila mandals should also be involved in the community viewing arrangement. Everywhere the media has the potential to make a far greater contribution to the advancement of women. They can create safe regulatory mechanisms that can help to eliminate misleading and improper gender biased programming. Efforts from government. There are so many efforts have done from the government for the enhancement and empowerment of the status of women. Healthcare scheme by government for women. The National Rural Health Mission was launched on 12th April 2005 to provide accessible, affordable, and quality health care to the rural population, especially the vulnerable group. It means to provide equitable, affordable, and quality health care to the rural population, especially the vulnerable groups. So as to National Urban Health Mission and Pradhan Mantri Matritva Vandana Yojana, Pradhan Mantri Surakshit Matritva Abhiyan, and there are so many schemes which have started from the government to improve the health of the women. Government measures undertaken by the women's education. The most important scheme is Beti Bachao Beti Padhao scheme. It was launched on 22nd January 2050 at Panipat in Haryana. It was initiated as a ministerial effort of Ministry of Women and Child Development, Health and Family Welfare, and Human Resource Development from 21-22. The Ministry of Skill Development and Entrepreneurship and Ministry of Minority Affairs have also been added as a partners. The objective of the scheme are as under to prevent gender bias sex selective elimination, to ensure survival and protection of the girl child, to ensure education and participation of the girl child, to increase girls' participation in the field of sports. And Digital Gender Atlas is a Department of School Education and Literacy, Ministry of Human Resource Development initiative with support from UNICEF to identify low-performing geographic pockets for girls, particularly from marginalized groups such as scheduled castes, scheduled tribes, and Muslim minorities, on specific gender-related education indicators. To ensure equitable education with a focus on vulnerable girls, including girls with disability, the Gender Atlas has been developed as a hands or management tool to enable critical decision and action in pockets where performance are below. National scheme of incentive to girls for secondary education. The objective of the scheme is to establish an enabling environment to reduce the dropout and to promote the enrollment of girl children in secondary schools. सर्व शिक्षा अभियान, राष्ट्रीय माध्यमिक शिक्षा अभियान, Udan. Udan CBSE has launched Udan to provide free online resources to girl students of class 11th and 12th for preparation. To increase the participation of women in STEM education, supernumerary seats being created in the ITs and NITs. Efforts from government to improve participation of women in decision making. So Parliamentary Committee on Empowerment of Women. The Committee on Empowerment of Women was constituted for the first time in 1997 during the 11th Lok Sabha of the Parliament for improving the status of women. Then Women Reservation Bill in 2008. Then reservation for women in Panchayati Raj institution. Article 243D of the Constitution ensured participation of women in Panchayati Raj institution by mandating not less than 1/3 reservation for women out of total number of seats to be filled by direct election and number of offices of chairperson of Panchayat. There are so many loan schemes for unemployed women, Mudra loan for women, Annapurna scheme, Stree Shakti Yojana, Bharti Mahila Bank Business Loan, Mahila Uddami Nidhi Yojana, and many more. Government measures undertaken for the prohibition of the crime against women. The World Health Organization and United Nations are making constant efforts to change this rising tide of violence against women in the form of spreading education and holding workshops for spreading knowledge on the law against such violence. India, being one of the developing countries of the world, has tried its best to combat this human right violation. India laws that help curb the instances of violences against women are the Dowry Prohibition Act 1961, the Indecent Representation of Women Prohibition Act 1986, the Commission of Sati Prevention Act 1987, Protection of Women from Domestic Violence Act 2005, the Sexual Harassment of Women at Workplace Prevention, Prohibition and Redressal Act 2013, the Criminal Law Amendment Act 2013. Violence against women in India is actually way more than what the numbers and statistics show. The majority of these cases remain undocumented due to the stigma surrounding the society. There is one-stop centers currently functioning in the country is 1,90,527 for women who are affected by violence offered support. The ministry is implementing a scheme for setting up one-stop center since 1st April 2015 to support women affected by violence. There is women helpline number 1091 has been there in existence for long, but seldom do women know about it. Apart from domestic abuse and dowry cases, the police also handle eve teasing and promptly send the police on call after the call is made. Department of Telecommunication, Government of India has allocated short code 181 to all state, which is being used by some states such as Delhi, Chandigarh. The Ministry of Home Affairs is implementing several projects for safety of women under the Nirbhaya Fund scheme through the state union territories. Total fund allocation approved and released to state and union territories year-wise by MHA under Nirbhaya funds. Schemes including Safe City projects, National Repository of Information for Women is an initiative of the Ministry of Women and Child Development to provide women citizens with easy access to information on government scheme and initiative for women. That is NARI Nari portal. Information on government schemes and initiative for women. The sexual harassment electronic box is an effort of Government of India to provide a single window access to every woman, irrespective of her work status, whether working in organized or unorganized, private or public sector, to facilitate the registration of complaint related to sexual harassment. Any woman facing sexual harassment at workplace can register their complaint through this portal. Once a complaint submitted to the C-Box, it will be directly sent to the concerned authority and having jurisdiction to take action into the matter. So the Ministry of Women and Child Development also provided an email address intended to curtain online abuse against women by addressing every complaint that is received on the email of the ministry. So to conclude, India has enacted many constitutional and legislative provision welfare and empowerment of women. Many development schemes, especially for women and children, have also been launched for improving their fortune. Such measures have started giving positive outcomes relating to women and children problems, but the position of women in our society still leaves much to be desired. Top priorities should be given in our development plans for improving female literacy and creating skill and capability among women for enabling them to stand on their own feet. Unless the process of development properly and generated, it still remain endangered. Empowerment of women could only be achieved if their economic and social status is improved. In pursuit of making India a great nation, let us work towards giving women their much deserved status. Thus, our country should be catapulted into the horizon of empowerment and equality of girls, women in all spheres to achieve the goal of gender inclusive development in India. Without socio-economic equality for women in poor section of India, the impact of the efforts at development cannot become fully realized. India must value women as a human resource, assets, and not liabilities. Socioeconomic development can both empower women and raise the status of the Indian economy. Women need employment justice, education, vocational training, and skill improvement would increase the capacity for gainful economic participation. For women in India, cross-cutting issues are to spread awareness about their rights and facilitate access, learning, nutrition, institutional, and legislative support for enabling them to grow and develop to their full potential. So thank you so much to all of you. That is all from my side.
Yeah, madam, thank you for your very detailed and elaborated lecture. Dear participant, if you have any doubt and anything, any questions, please you put up in the message box so that we can take up it. Please. Now the time is discussion. Madam, please you stop the sharing so that your full view will come. Yeah. Now it's okay. So, dear participant, please put up if you have any queries, anything. So, madam, I have now no person is asking. It means things are okay, and they are in message box. So they are putting only thank you, madam. Means they are very satisfied with your lecture. So with this, thank you so much, madam, for sharing your rich experience with our participant and giving your valuable time to my participant. Thank you so much. My office will contact you very soon. Means after finish this course will be over on 28. So after that they will contact you for the official procedure for your honorarium and certificate and all. Okay. So
Thank you,
thank
sir.
you, madam. Thank you so much. You may leave now, madam.
Okay, sir. Thank you for giving me this opportunity, sir. Thank you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, madam. Thank you. So, dear participant, please wait 10 minutes. The new resource person will join within 5-10 minutes. Okay, please be online. Don't leave. And I already requested on behalf of all of you to the next speaker that finish the classes at 4 o'clock today. Okay. So be online. Let's join madam. Then we will start. If madam will join little early, we will start early. Okay.